All right, so we're continuing here with chapter 15, and the theme of the Benoni continues. The Benoni, which, as you recall, is the person that we should all achieve to be, and that's someone that can completely control his animal soul on all three realms: action, speech, and thought. And as soon as a negative thought permeates from his animal soul, then the Benoni is able to push it off with both of his hands, as the Tanya put it, push it off strongly and still maintain control of his mind. So we're going to continue to speak about the Benoni in different ways now, maybe with a few more methods and maybe more on a practical level, as you'll see. Let's continue here. Again, page 45. Let's start where it says commentary. Does anyone want to read? Beginning of chapter 15. Please, anyone.
I can read.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. Go for it.
Where it says commentary, you said?
That's right. Page 45.
Okay.
Yeah.
After explaining the essence of the Bayani in the previous chapters, the author turns in the coming chapters to different aspects of the Bayani's service of God. What is it in practice? What does it include? Here begins an in-depth guide to becoming a Bayani. As we have mentioned, one vital element in the Bayani's arsenal is perseverance. He will never reach the finish line, and yet he will not remain at whatever level he does attain. From that place and moment, he must already push forward. The Bayani occupies the middle lane between the righteous Sadiq and do not be wicked Rasha. Between, on one hand, his aspiration to be a Sadiq and his frame of reference, grasp infinity, and on the other hand, the borders that he may not cross, do not be wicked Rasha.
Right. Okay, that's just a general introduction, but it's interesting to note. I think that's a beautiful way of putting it, that the Benoni, although may not ever achieve the level of a tzaddik, his aspiration is always to become a tzaddik. So, in other words, what defines the Benoni is not just the control, the complete control of his animal soul, but his mindset, his aspiration, the aspiration that he will never quite achieve, but just to achieve the aspiration to be there is already what makes him a Benoni. It's almost what, I think we've said this before, but the Baal Shem Tov says, if you want to know a person, if you really want to know the essence of a person, look at his thoughts. If your thoughts, if your aspirations are to become a tzaddik, then that's what you'll be, even though maybe in practice you're not there yet, even though maybe deep inside with the full transformation of the animal soul, you're not there yet. But just that aspiration, a lot can be told about a person based on his aspiration. If a person's aspiration is just to live another day and exist another day, then that's where he is. But the aspirations turn us into who we are. So it's important to remember that, and that really encapsulates well chapter 14. Now we're going to see how Benoni is a Benoni in practice, practically speaking. First, with a few again words of introduction, but let's continue now with the words of the Tanya, just to get
Okay.
into it.
With the above in mind, we may now understand the text. Then shall you again discern between the righteous man and the wicked man, between him that is serving God and him that serves him not.
Right.
This this verse divides people into four categories: the righteous man, the wicked man, one who serves God, and one who does not. The Talmud discusses the apparent duplication of the righteous man and the one who is serving God, and the wicked man and the one who serves him not, concluding that one who is serving and one who is not does not serve represents two kinds of tzaddikim. The author then proceeds to fill in the picture with greater detail. The Talmud's right, the Talmud's righteous man can also be, according to this line of thought, a Bani, and the one who is serving and the one who is not are different levels of Bani. The entire chapter develops and explains the Talmud's words in accordance with this perspective.
Right. Because at least in the first read, it seems like it's the same person. Isn't a tzaddik someone who's serving God? So why are they putting this in two separate categories? And same with the wicked. Uh, if a wicked is someone who's not serving God. So again, why are they four separate categories here instead of just two? And that is to come to teach us that there is a difference between the righteous and one who's serving God, and the wicked and one who's not serving God. How so? Let's just continue here. Just one more paragraph, if you don't mind, and we'll develop this
Sure.
idea. Go for it.
The difference between one who is serving God and a righteous man, Sadiq, that one who is serving Oved, God, in the active present, is one who is engaged in active service, namely the struggle against evil nature in an effort to gain mastery over it and to banish it from the small city, that it should not vest itself in organs of the body. Verily, it entails much effort and toil to wage constant war with it. This is the Bani.
Right. Go for it. The Benoni is called. I know you're doing a lot of reading, but just just to get to the point. The
Oh,
Benoni
sure.
is called one more.
The Bani is called in the active present the one who is serving, because he is continually engaged in the battle with his evil disposition for control of himself, the small city. For the Bani, this war is not a finite episode that occurred sometime in the past. It is ongoing for the duration of his life.
Right. So it's and there lies the difference. So the tzaddik is someone maybe who served Hashem. He's still serving Hashem in different ways here, but he served Hashem. His main struggle with the animal soul has been overcome because he's transformed his animal soul. Sorry, that's the tzaddik we said. The Benoni is the one who's serving Hashem in the present tense, or in the Hebrew words, Oved Hashem, that he constantly has to serve Hashem because the struggle is very much alive within him between the divine soul and the animal soul. So he constantly has to be on top of his game and control his animal soul. And it's a work, as we've explained in the past, that he will face his entire life. It's not that he can say, okay, I've arrived, like the tzaddik can say, because there are only a few of those. Most of us will always have to be in that constant mode of Oved Hashem, of serving Hashem. I want to focus, though, on something that is not said here, but that is hinted to. And that is that it's interesting because there are many words for serving in Hebrew. The word that is used here is Oved Hashem, which really means the servant of Hashem or even the slave of Hashem. Eved is a slave. It's the exact same word. Eved, Oved. And in many, many ways, it is hinting to this work, this very, very tiresome work of the Benoni, that it's not just, okay, all right, I have a thought to overcome now and then I'll move on. It's really something that the Benoni struggles with all the time. It's draining, it's exhausting, just like the work of a slave. It's not, the tzaddik doesn't have that work. The Benoni does. But on the other hand, he's not also, he's not agonizing about it. He embraces it. And that serving is really what turns him into a Benoni. In many ways, it's also what turns him to more connected, if we may use that term, more connected to God than the tzaddik is. Because the Benoni constantly has to think about God because of this constant struggle. Just like a slave constantly is thinking about his master because he has to appease him. And he has to do laborious work sometimes. The same word again, Eved, Oved. A year, the Benoni is constantly connecting to Hashem through the control of his animal soul. That is an exhausting struggle for him. But that's the word. It's not just, okay, it's a box that I have to check today, and then it's on my to-do list, and I'll get over it. It's really a 24/7 work, and it's exhausting, like the work of a slave. But on the other hand, that's what makes the Benoni a Benoni, and that's what makes him a servant of Hashem, Oved Hashem. Among Hasidim, the greatest title one could receive was this title, Oved Hashem, not Avad Hashem, Oved. That the man is constantly preoccupied with serving Hashem. And by being constantly preoccupied with serving Hashem, he's connected with Hashem all the time. There's no lapse. There's no vacation of that connection. In many ways, that's really what the Benoni achieves that the tzaddik doesn't achieve, and that's why we said that, in the previous chapter, that the Benoni where the Benoni may stand, even the tzaddik cannot stand, because he has this constant eved, constant avdut of serving Hashem in the present tense. I will just add that, and it's interesting because In Hebrew, there there are two words for serving in the sense, or even for work. Today we use this type of word. Today, when you go and to Israel and you hear someone leaving in the morning his house, he says, "I'm yolech la'avod." I'm going to go work. But la'avod is the same word that we're using here, eved, which means slave. So in other words, what that person is really saying in Hebrew is that I'm going to go become a slave to his work, but still a slave. That's the word that is being used. The word that one should use for work is the biblical word, which is melacha. For example, God tells us that for 6 days, sheshet yamim ta'aseh melacha. 6 days work shall be done. Melacha. So uh, it's a different word. Melacha really comes from the word malach, which means angel. So what it really refers to is that even though I'm going to go to do my job, whether it's an engineer or a scientist or a doctor or a lawyer, whatever it may be, I'm going to stay like an angel. I'm going to be above it. I'm not going to allow it to drain me. I'm not going to allow it to completely overcome me. Melacha. I'm going to work, but like an angel floats and stays above, so too I will float above my job. I won't allow it to control me. Now, if we look at the Torah, really, that's the word that should be used when we go and work. The word eved, la'avod, in the entire Torah is only used in the context of a master-slave relationship or in the context of God and man relationship. In other words, the only time we are allowed to be slaves is if we fell into slavery, and then it's almost de facto, or is if we worship Hashem. But our jobs can never be seen as avodah, even though I know that's the word that is used in Hebrew wrongly. That should be called melacha, as mentioned. The only time we're allowed to use that word, at least according to the Torah, and to act like that, is with our worship to God. That's the only type of slavery we're allowed to accept upon ourselves. Now you may say, wow, that's very draining. Well, yes, that's the work of a Beinoni, Oved Hashem. That's the framework within which we're allowed to be slaves to Hashem. Not slaves in a negative way, but slaves in the fact that it's an exhausting labor. And it's something that we are completely devoted to. And when a person is at every second of the day thinking about Hashem, thinking about controlling his animal soul, then he becomes an Oved Hashem. And then he earns that highest title of being truly connected to Hashem in his deepest depths. So that's really what this term refers to. I just wanted to clarify that because it's not just a loose term. Something that's very, very, very takes a toll. It's very all immersive. But on the other hand, it's also what connects us in the profoundest way to God, more than a tzaddik even is connected. So practically speaking, I know you're speaking up there, but practically speaking, it really means that at every moment of the day, I'm asking, what does God want me to do? That's what I'm asking. Every moment of the day. Not what I want to do, not what's comfortable for me to do. What does God want me to do? And you act upon it. That's being an Oved Hashem. Because we may have many different thoughts. Right now, I just want to sit on my couch. Right now, I just want to watch TV. Right now, I just want to, whatever it is. But an Oved Hashem in the present, again, is someone who comes out of his comfort zone all the time.
So what does the tzaddik think all the time?
So the tzaddik is different because the tzaddik has achieved, has already overcome that. He's on a different realm. The tzaddik, instead of saying, okay, just to put it practically, instead of being in a position in which he has to make a decision between relaxing on his couch and going to do God's work, whatever that may mean, whether it's praying or helping someone or learning Torah or whatever it is, the tzaddik doesn't have that pull between the couch and that because the couch is not even in his realm of consciousness. The tzaddik really has a different type of pull. It's between two good deeds, two good realms. So it's between, practically, between should I go now and pray, or should I go now and learn Torah? Should I go and now do this mitzvah, or should I do this other mitzvah? That's where his struggle is. The animal soul doesn't exist. So it's a whole different ballgame. It's actually more boring, if you think about it, because he's on cruise control in the realm of goodness. The Beinoni has to oved, he has to exhaust himself to be connected to Hashem. Through that exhaustion, he attains a deeper and more exciting connection to God.
Rabbi, I have a question. Does the Tzaddik ever neglect their animal soul? Like, because the animal soul is also like kind of what helps with that drive, right?
Right. So the tzaddik has overcome his animal soul, the tzaddik of the Tanya. So the drive that he receives is from one realm of goodness to another, right? From the hardships of mitzvahs, for example. So one mitzvah that's harder than another mitzvah is what motivates him, what gives him that drive that you're talking about. It's not something. I mean, maybe some of you can. It's not something I can fully fathom, because I'm not there. But it's only something that tzaddikim deal with. Now, we're Beinonis, which really means that not only are we able to, as mentioned, to achieve a deeper connection with Hashem, because really our fight, our struggle is so much strong. It's stronger, but it also means that our, like you said at the beginning, our work lies in the journey itself, in the aspirations themselves that are never materialized, in the oved, in the constant present work that we have to do. And that is yet another difference between the Beinoni and the Tzaddik. The Tzaddik maybe has arrived. Then he has to arrive somewhere else, but he does reach an end goal with each and every struggle that he has. The Beinoni really never reaches that end goal, that finish line. It could be very depressing, but it's really something that, again, connects us to Hashem much deeper. You know, I know that there's a great story out there about the Lubavitcher Rebbe that was once approached with someone who was having a terrible struggle. I forget what it was. And the Rebbe said to him, "I'm jealous of you." And the man was taken aback because he had gone to so many rabbis and everyone tried to give him a solution. And yet the Rebbe said, "I'm jealous of you." He says, "What do you mean? I'm the one struggling, Rebbe, not you." And the struggle is very alive in me. And the Rebbe said, "That's exactly why I'm jealous of you. Because I don't have this struggle. And if you can overcome this struggle, you'll achieve that which I will never be able to achieve because I've never had the struggle. So I'm jealous of you and what you can potentially achieve." In many ways, this story really encapsulates the work of the Beinoni. The Beinoni faces struggles that a tzaddik can never really fathom. But it's because of that struggle that we can achieve that which the tzaddik can never achieve. So yes, it could be a little depressing, but if we think of the underlying rewards that we receive, then it's something that only we, as Beinonis, as potential Beinonis, can achieve. And that should give us the strength. But that's the Oved, again, Oved Hashem, that service of Hashem that is really constant, that is very, very draining. You know, I want to tie this to the Parsha of the week, if I may, but it's interesting that just Rabbi Steinsaltz would very often say that he would say, you know, people use terms today so loosely. He wrote a whole book about this, by the way. He wrote a book called Simple Words that I think we've mentioned, where he takes words that people use loosely and gives them the real explanation, the deeper meaning to those words, and how they're not just loose and empty words like love, like good deeds, like many other words. But anyway, one of those words is light. Very often we say we have to be a light unto the nations, right? We quote the prophet. That's what the Jewish people have to do, and we use words like tikkun olam, repairing the world, also so loosely. But Rabbi Stans would often say that when Isaiah wrote that we have to be Or LaGoyim, light unto the nations, he didn't have electricity. It wasn't just turning off on a switch. That's easy to do. Then they actually needed to create light, to first and foremost create the spark that then can produce the light, but then had to actually gather that wax and build it together as one big lump, and then actually have a candle. It was laborious. It was very, very hard to create light. But in many ways, Rabbi Shtels would say that's the only way you can create light. That's the way it was in this week's portion. Now we speak about the lighting of the menorah. It's not just a switch. It's gathering the olives. By the way, from a lot of them came from Tekoa. Some of you were and visited. Then you have to crush the olives. Then you have to turn it into olive oil. Then you have to actually go and make it pure. Then you have to put it in the menorah. Then you have to ignite that flame. It's a lot of work to produce light. But that, on the other hand, is the only way we can truly be an Or LaGoyim. So, why am I saying this? Because the work of a Beinoni is a very exhausting work. But that's how you produce light. It's not just a switch. Switch doesn't produce light. Maybe it produces light, but it doesn't make you an Or LaGoyim, a true light unto the nations, a light unto the world. The only way to achieve that light is through a lot of work. Oved Hashem, like it says here. It's laborious, but that's what produces light. That's what connects us more to Hashem than even a tzaddik is connected. That's the real light. No pain, no gain, as they say.
Mhm.
But with that pain of Oved Hashem, and then we create true light. That's what Isaiah meant. And that's what menorah represents, really. There's another, just to connect this also to the Parsha, but which is another aspect of Oved Hashem. But it's interesting because the menorah was the one of the only vessels that had to be made of one piece. If you think about this, it's almost impossible to create a menorah out of one piece, mikshar chat, as it says, because it has 7 candelabras. Why would Hashem make it so difficult for Moshe Rabbeinu to build a menorah out of one piece? In fact, the Midrash says that he didn't know how to build it. And he was asking Hashem. Hashem says, you know what, just throw this lump of gold that you have from the donations of the people into the fire. And then a menorah came out. But what about future generations who lived in the Jerusalem temple, who had to make a menorah out of one piece? It's very hard. But the deeper answer is that God wanted the menorah to be made of one piece to teach us that in order to be menorahs, we too have to be made of one piece. If, it's true in every area of life. If you want to go on a diet, but you love cheesecake, it doesn't work. You have to align your heart with your actions. And same with menorah. If my heart is not Oved Hashem, I can't really produce light. I can't be a menorah. I have to be completely one with my aspiration here. One with my control of my animal soul. Can't just be compartmentalized. Yes, I'll do it today. I won't do it tomorrow. I'll do it this time, not that time. I have to be completely devoted. Oved, servant. But when I'm a servant, that slave, Oved Hashem, completely with one piece, then I can light. So anyway, it shouldn't depress us because it's what turns us into menorahs. It's what enables us to light a true light. And at the same time, it also what enables us to elevate ourselves beyond the level of a tzaddik, to achieve a connection with God that even a tzaddik cannot achieve, that a tzaddik is jealous of.